It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We have got a fantastic program for you today, so please hit the share button so we will be unselfish and spread the news. Let's get educated. Before we get started, I do want to mention that Freedom Project Academy, our Judeo-Christian classical online school, kicks off fall enrollment tomorrow, Tuesday, April 12th. We'll be talking a lot about FPA over the next coming months. We have a couple of, basically 3 months of enrollment. So any time between now and the end of June, you can get into our school. But if you're interested in a great alternative for your kids' education, please request a free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedomforschool.com. And speaking of education, parents, are you worried about the indoctrination happening in public schools? I have great news. There's a revolution transforming education, and it's not happening in classroom. Schoolhouse Rocked. The homeschool revolution follows one family on their journey to dispel all the myths and misconceptions and uncover the truth about home education. Watch this short clip.
Education is discipleship, and this is something I didn't understand until I was probably 3 years into homeschooling. The Bible teaches us in Luke 6:40 that when a student is fully trained, he will be like his teacher. And as we look around the culture right now, I think it begs the question, who is teaching our children? Who is teaching our children, and what are they teaching our children? And to me, the primary benefit of having my children home with me is I am able to impart my worldview to my children.
We are proud at Freedom Project to be a sponsor of Schoolhouse Rocked, and we encourage you to get your copy of Schoolhouse Rocked today. Get it on DVD or HD streaming by visiting schoolhouserocked.com/FP. Again, schoolhouserocked.com/FP. This is a fantastic movie that every parent must see. The sooner the better. Today we start with yet another radical move as the Biden administration flirts with the idea of American taxpayers footing the bill to mutilate the bodies of children who believe they are at a different gender. Now, apparently without any real age limits on this mutilation. This is, of course, partially Biden's response to what Ron DeSantis did in Florida, trying to protect kids from being exposed to conversations about sex and sexuality until at least they get to 4th grade. The federal government, backed by the Department of Education, wants there to be absolutely no limitations on what kind of crazy sexuality you can teach children, even as young as preschool. And they're pushing transforming hormone therapies to kids who haven't even hit puberty yet. And apparently, the Biden administration is okay with 6, 7, and 8-year-olds being surgically scarred for life if they feel that they happen to be at those young ages somebody else.
So we've seen the transformation going through the Biden administration. Little by little, they've been kind of just announcing things they want to do. And now everything, especially with Disney and with what's happening in Florida and now going to other states around the nation, it's all definitely there for you to see. There's no excuses at this point, basically, Mom and Dad, for you not being like, what? This is happening in my school? I never thought it would. It's going to happen, and it's starting with the Biden administration, who at the end of March released documents that promoted the gender reassignment surgery and hormone treatments for minors. Now, the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Population Affairs released a document that was titled Gender Affirming Care and Young People. And on the very same day, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration's National Child Traumatic Stress Network, which is another subset of the HHS, they released a parallel document that was titled Gender Affirming Care is Trauma-Informed Care. See how sounds so nice. Well, HHS says that appropriate treatments for transgender adolescents include top surgery, up top, to create male typical chest shape or enhance breasts. And of course, if you're going to have top surgery, you're going to have bottom surgery, which is surgery on genitals or reproductive organs, facial feminization, or other procedures. And in the release, it states that medical and psychosocial gender affirming healthcare practices have been demonstrated to yield lower rates of adverse mental health outcomes, build self-esteem, and improve overall quality of life for transgender and gender diverse youth. And my question is, For how long?
And when? When? Show us when you've done this. When you've taken a 7 or an 8-year-old and you've done surgery on them. Let us see the results of that. Here's another thing, Katie. I want you to think about this. And Mom and Dad, think about how precocious young girls can be. And if before puberty hits at, say, 11, 12, 13, you've got young boys who are transitioning to girls. And by the time they're 6 and 7 years old, they have been physically operated on to already have begun to have breasts. So actual girls won't get their breasts filled out until puberty. Boys who think they're girls will get it, what, at 5 and 6, 7 and 8? What kind of chaos is, you wonder why the Supreme Court Justice, who we just put on the court, can't define what woman is anymore.
She's not a biologist. I think we know that at this point. But in the longer document that was put out by the NCTSN, they are talking about allowing the child or the adolescent to focus on their social transitions and increasing their confidence, navigating the healthcare system and all this stuff. And they say it may include evidence-based interventions such as puberty blockers and gender-affirming hormones. Well, isn't that just delightful? But, let's just put a cherry on top of this sundae and have our very own President Joseph Robinette Biden when he sent out a message on his Twitter for Transgender Day of Visibility.
To everyone celebrating Transgender Day of Visibility, I want you to know that your president sees you. Jill, Kamala, Doug, our entire administration sees you for who you are, made in the image of God and deserving of dignity, respect, and support. But we know it's hard when there are those out there who don't see you and don't respect you. For example, the onslaught of anti-transgender state laws attacking you and your families is simply wrong. This administration is standing up for you against all these hateful bills, and we're committed to advancing transgender equality in the classroom, on the playing field, at work, in our military, in our housing and healthcare systems, everywhere, simply everywhere. Today, we're announcing even more steps, but there's always more work to do to end the epidemic of violence against transgender women of color and girls of color, to ensure transgender seniors can age with dignity, and to finally pass a bipartisan Equality Act, to help transgender persons around the world live free from discrimination and violence. Above all, to be there with you. To parents of transgender children, affirming your child's identity is one of the most powerful things you can do to keep them safe and healthy. To any transgender American who's struggling, please know that you're not alone. To parents and children alike, please ask for help and know this: you're so brave, you belong, and we have your back. God bless you all. Be brave.
There's a lot to unpack there, but after the break, we're going to talk about how his spinster, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, at least, for now, the spinster, is warning us what the administration is doing.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
So you hear the message that Joe Biden says or is told to say, and then you have Jen Psaki, his press secretary, who has to basically spin it all as much as she can. And so she is doing that by issuing warnings to you doing what the opposite of what Joe Biden just said in that whole long message. For any of you who actually want to protect the children from puberty blockers and transgender surgeries, you want to just, let kids grow up and be kids. You've been put in your place, according to the Jen Psaki.
Yeah, they're threatening the power of government, federal government, if you don't believe this nonsense. And I just want to go, before we move over, that clip we showed you from Joe Biden is stunning. He starts off by arguing, right, that all of these children are made in the image of God. Joe, if you really believe that, how come you don't protect the unborn? By your argument, A lot of transgender people are being aborted every single day in this country, given how you inflate those numbers. So explain that to me, Joe. How is it that these beautiful children made in the name of God are slaughtered like every other kid, and you have no problem with that? And number two, did you hear at the end of what he had to say? We've got your back. Joe, it's not the back of these little kids we're worried about. It's what you're doing to the front. You don't seem to understand the consequences of this. And so you've got your redheaded thug now using the power of government to threaten states who want to protect the innocence and the bodily integrity of children, and you think you're on the right side.
And so basically what happened specifically in the press room, Jen Psaki put everyone on notice, as she said. Put on notice is her terminology. What happened is Alabama became yet another state to put forth, I don't know, common sense and pass a bill that would ban doctors from mutilating the children or, putting them on puberty blockers, which is, again, the opposite of what this administration wants to do. And so Psaki basically took her little bully pulpit and she said, you're put on notice.
Republican lawmakers are currently debating legislation that, among many things, would target trans youth with tactics that threatens to put pediatricians in prison if they provide medically necessary life-saving health care for the kids they serve. Just like the extreme government overreach we've seen in Texas, where politicians have sent state officials into the homes of loving parents to investigate them for abuse just to harass and intimidate the LGBTQI+ community, today's vote in Alabama will only serve to harm kids. But Alabama's lawmakers and other legislators who are contemplating these discriminatory bills have been put on notice by the Department of Justice and the Department of Health and Human Services that laws and policies preventing care that healthcare professionals recommend for transgender minors may violate the Constitution and federal law. To be clear, every major medical association agrees that gender-affirming healthcare for transgender kids is a best practice and potentially life-saving.
Now listen to me, you freckled thug. The idea that this is life-saving care, no, it's not. You're not saving anybody's life. It's not necessary. It's not necessary care to mutilate the body of a little child who is too young to make these decisions for themselves. You wouldn't allow, my friend, a 7-year-old to get a tattoo. You would not allow an 8-year-old to be able to decide when he or she got tattooed. You wouldn't do it. But something much graver than that, to have parts of their anatomy removed surgically, you're okay with that? No, that's not necessary. And it's certainly not life-saving. If anything, putting children through these protocols, including dangerous hormone therapy before natural puberty can even begin, blocking that puberty, and then forcing children who have yet to hit puberty to undergo surgical operations to justify what is in their young brains at that moment, before they've had a time to mature, before they start thinking critically, it is not life-saving, it is life-endangering. Now I know, you're exactly right. Thugs come all over the way, all over the rainbow. And you and what you're doing for government, in the name of government, is pure thuggery.
And so Fox News' Peter Doocy did the only thing, like anything journalistic ever going on in that press room. And he just asked the simple question that we've all been thinking too. Okay, Jen Psaki, Biden administration, if you're all about this, sex ed, gender ed, for the kindergartners, for the first, second, third graders, what about the pre-K? Why not just, when they come out of the womb, essentially, give them some sex education?
At what age does the White House think that students should be taught about sexual orientation and gender identity?
Well, I would say, first of all, Peter, we have spoken to the Don't Say Gay bill in the past, I believe is what you're referring to, and made clear that as we look at this law, what we think it's a reflection of is politicians in Florida propagating misinformed, hateful policies that do absolutely nothing to address the real issues.
Oh, yeah. So let's think back now, if you've been watching the show here, and when we talked about Ron DeSantis in Florida and them passing their bill and how that, and we're going to talk about in the next segment, other states are kind of following suit. But it is interesting when Ron DeSantis said, you've got to wonder, why is this the hill to die on? To have transgenderism injected into kindergarten classrooms or woke gender ideology injected into second grade classrooms. And that's when you ask yourself that and frame it in that way and start listening to what Jen Psaki and Joe Biden and all the rest of them are saying. It's like, why are they doing this?
Well, notice what she did too. She insists that we must do this for children of all ages, but when she's pressed on it, she can't give an age number. It's like Katani did when she was running for Supreme Court. I can't tell you that. I know what a woman is, but I can't tell you. We know, wink, wink, that we want to get it to your kids as young as preschool. But we're not going to be in your Republican commercial next November for the election for saying it. So we know we know how unpopular this is, so we won't admit it when you ask us a direct question. People like that should come nowhere near this kind of power over your kids.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
Since we're talking about Florida man, Ron DeSantis, he's been an inspiration to a lot of different states at this point. And right now, in Ohio, the Ohio Republicans have offered their bill basically following Florida's lead. And it would ban the sex education from, oh my gosh, kindergarten through third grade? It's, again, almost as if those are the ages when kids should maybe not be learning about sex and gender and all of that. So they're being common sense. So in Ohio, it's the House who put forth their version of the parental rights in education bill that was from Florida, and it's called HB 616. It was introduced by Republican state reps Gene Schmidt and Mike Loychik, and it basically states the exact same thing as what's happening in Florida. And so K-3, it would be banned, and then for students in grades 4 through 12, discussion of the topics in any textbook, instructional material, or academic curriculum is restricted to material that is age-appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. Wow, that reads like, again, common sense, duh, but no.
And notice how clear it is alongside the explanations of the Bidens and the Psaki's of the world, clear as day. And when we're talking about kids between 3 years old, preschool and grade 3, we're talking about 3-year-olds to 8-year-olds. Is it really that impossible to imagine that not talking about no sexualization at all of kids from that range is a bad thing? I mean, this is the thing that really bothers me. You're talking about 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds. You're talking about little kids here. I almost wonder this. What if we take advantage of what they're telling us? And instead of teaching transgenderism to 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, what if we wanted to, in our schools, do a radical heterosexual education program only? We'd be sexualizing them. We'd be talking about sex. But what if we use those periods between the ages of 3 and 8, between preschool and 3rd grade, to hit them so hard with one-sided heterosexual ideology and biology that by the time you get them in 4th grade, it'll be too late to undo that. You want to fight fire with fire? Maybe it's time we go down that road.
Well, it's not just Ohio who is looking at these bills. We also have Georgia advancing legislation, which includes the a parent's Bill of Rights as well. They passed a bill in both the Senate and the House, HB 1178. It outlines a parent's Bill of Rights. And the reader summary provided for the bill by the Georgia legislature said that the bill will provide a review of removal of students in elementary and secondary education so as to provide for the protection of the fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing and education of their minor children from undue infringement by a state or local government entity, local board of education, or any other officer, employee, or agent thereof. Basically, they're making it so that parents have rights in school so that then we don't get all this sexualization in schools, because guess what? It's the parents who don't want that for their children.
And here's the problem. Don't keep it in the schools. What's stopping any transgender parent to doing it on their own? I mean, just because we don't teach it to 5-year-olds doesn't mean if you're the mother of a 5-year-old transgender kid, you can't do it at home and all in your private time and at your doctor's office. Just keep it out of public school. Who's the one that's being difficult now?
Hello everyone, I'm David Fiorazzo. Before we go, let's take a little time to fill you in on a few stories we've been talking about around the office here. Let's start in Alaska with Alaskan Airlines and its voluntary nosedive to appease the left and woke culture. So the airline just announced that they're instituting gender-neutral uniforms, personal pronoun pins, unlike, well, maybe similar to pledge pins, and they're allowing all workers to wear makeup and fingernail polish regardless of gender. What could go wrong? In a statement from the airline, it's all about making sure, quote, everyone can bring their best and most authentic selves to work and be an inclusive and welcoming environment for employees and guests alike, end quote. As part of its new woke PR campaign, the airline also introduced Jason, flight attendant by day and drag star by night, who, of course, uses the pronouns they, their, and passengers will know that, right? Thanks to their brand new pronoun pins that every employee will wear. Duke and Katie, this is unbelievable. Now we've got genderless uniforms, drag queen flight attendants, pronoun police running planes, and it's almost as if Alaskan Airlines saw how uncomfortable passengers have been wearing masks and said, hold my beer.
I just have a logic problem. If you're making them dress you're forcing them to dress gender neutrally, but then you require them to wear a pronoun pin, it's not gender neutral anymore, is it, guys?
How dare you say guys?
Katie?
No,
That's right. Gal?
Thank you. I've never planned to fly on Alaska Airlines. I have no reason to go to Alaska.
No cruises in the near future?
Although I can see Russia from my home, so maybe I will go
Tina
to
Fey.
Alaska.
All right, okay, speaking of bowing to the cult of woke, check this next one out. The top-selling cookie has decided to dip a toe in the LGBTQ milk. Oreo cookie just put out a video via Twitter saying, coming out doesn't just happen once. It's a journey that needs love and courage every step of the way. Share our new film and let someone know you are there. Hashtag lifelong ally. Now the video is roughly 2.5 minutes long and shows a young Asian man preparing to come out to his family. While few Oreos are actually consumed in the video, the main point is to remind cookie lovers Oreo is all in for the LGBT agenda. Rainbow Oreos, here we go again. And finally, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Cracker Jacks joining the fun. Yes, the caramel popcorn snack, synonymous with baseball, has decided to release a Cracker Jill version in the name of gender equality. Now, Cracker Jack is repackaging its snacks in 5 special edition bags featuring women of different races to represent girls in sports. They've recreated the famed Cracker Jack song performed by Normani. Take a listen to this.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jill. No one can stop you if you have the will. So let's root for a girl's dream. We're adding our face to the game, and we'll run, throw with never a doubt. It's a new ball.
Play ball.
Oh, I'm all about supporting girls in sports, but in today's highly politicized culture, are we to believe the snack company is actually supporting biological girls or anyone who identifies as one? Duke and Katie.
Did you notice that they didn't have any swimmers? Like the girls who got beat out by the monster-looking man at the NCAAs? So notice how it's interesting how Cracker Jill managed to avoid the elephant, the 800-pound elephant in the room named Leah Thomas.
And the simple fact that they are trying to argue that we need a caramel popcorn to represent them means absolutely nothing, because any athlete would not be eating that caramel popcorn, nor would they be eating the stupid Oreo cookies. And on top of that, how dare they end it with play ball?
And on top of that, aren't crackers white people? So now, aren't those little black girls named Cracker Jill, aren't you just racially assaulting them?
Oh my!
Cracker. Can you imagine in Chris Rock's voice? Cracker Jill? Who you calling Cracker Jill?
We will never run out of things to talk about, but that wraps up this segment. More to come next time.
All right. right, as we wrap things up, let's show some love to our Patriot Club members. And today, the special shout out goes to Derek from Norcross, Georgia. Derek, thank you for supporting us.
And that wraps up this show. For all of us at Freedom Project, stay educated, my friends.